What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Dave Savage, and today I am interviewing Coach Bill Hart. What's up, Coach?
Just hanging out here talking to you about one of my favorite subjects, so it's a good day.
What is that favorite subject?
Being all in.
Oh, that's what we're going to talk about. All right. So guys, today was the day where I did Script Palooza 2019. Had an awesome beginning of the day, and I am now pumped to be interviewing Coach Bill Hart on All In. So before I ask you my first question, I will just tell you, I am a fan of your podcast. I listened to the interview you recently did with Andrew Paul multiple times, not because you're my friend, but because it's just an incredible podcast. So thank you for that, my friend.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me, Dave. This is something that just came to me out of my heart, that this is not maybe what somebody would have predicted that I would do, but I realized that I really had a heart for this. Like, I really have a passion for this idea of being all in, and I wanted them to be short segments, and I spoke to you about that. You know, you are sort of my tech and social guru, right? That I'm always going to run these ideas past you, and you affirm that, yeah, you know, TED Talks are 18 minutes for a reason, and there's a couple that are down close to that. Nothing has been, I think, over 25 minutes, and that's really the goal. Plus, the dirty little secret is my world works in 30-minute segments because of coaching sessions. So when I'm scheduling calls, like here's a little peek behind the curtain, I sneak them in between coaching sessions, right? So just like this that we're doing today, I got to fit it into that 30-minute window, and I think that works for the listener as well. So yeah, man, pretty fired up about this.
Good. Well, and full disclosure, part of my push to do it in less than 20 minutes, 18 minutes is also because I'm ADD. And it's hard for me to listen to anything for less than 18 minutes at a time. So
totally get it.
So let's talk about All In. Why did you name your podcast All In?
Because I always try and distill down what I learn from clients and from the people that I interview and look for some kind of commonality. And that was the thing that I kept running into, is that people can be from completely different backgrounds, but the one common thread I see in highly effective people is that they're all in. And I believe, Dave, it starts with a decision. And I was running through this in my head this morning, prepping for this, thinking, yep, check, check, check. Like every person that I'm going to mention to you right now at some point made a decision that there was this thing that they were going to be all in on, right? Funny thing is, this weekend I did believe it or not, I was a guest on a dating podcast. I know, go figure, right? Like, I've been married 30 years. What do I know about dating? But that wasn't what they wanted to know. They wanted to know about how is it that our marriage works so well? And I believe that that's a decision, right? It's a decision that I am all in to this marriage. I am fully invested. And so I see it again and again and again. And then I see it in something like, talk about a ridiculous contrast, Ken Perry's push-up challenge, right? I think most people have heard of it, but the brief story of that is 1 push-up January 1st, 2 on the 2nd, 3 on the 3rd, 365 on December 31st, and you'll do 66,795 push-ups. So today is day 57, and I've already done 20. I'll knock out 57 push-ups today, and I don't want to do them. I don't want to do them, but I'm going to do them anyway. And my commitment to this whole group, right? Everybody that's on this right now, you can come up and like, you can push on my pecs or squeeze my arms or whatever. Like, is Coach really doing it? Coach is going to be doing 66,795 push-ups in 2019 because you do it anyway, right? And then I think of Daniel, and it's not his original thought. He would tell you that, but Daniel Harkavy has always said at Building Champions, we have got to help our clients say no to the good so they can say yes to the great. I don't know where it came from originally. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it's a truth, right? It's just a basic truth, Dave, that I think if you say no to the good things, I got plenty of good things that come at me every day, but I say yes to the great, the few things. Like, I made a decision today. You made a decision today. Lots of things you could have done. You landed on Scriptapalooza. Phenomenal, by the way. I'm so excited to sit down and listen to that whole thing. I was in coaching sessions. And anybody here, please, if you haven't checked it out yet, like when it's available, make sure you check it out, because this is the season where knowing what to say will give you confidence, and you'll be in a position to face that scenario more frequently and more confidently because you know what to say. So anyway, that's what it is. And I guess the contrast, Dave, would be like, think about it in real estate. Everybody knows a realtor that dabbles, right? I mean, do you? You probably know a real estate agent that has a license and they dabble in real estate. Am I right?
Absolutely. Or a mortgage professional that, dabbles in mortgage.
Dabbling don't do it. Dabbling ain't going to make it work, right? So this is the antithesis of dabbling. This is saying, I am absolutely 100% all in. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that on the very first intro, which is 5 minutes, All In with Coach Bill Hart, you can, whatever platform you use, Stitcher, iTunes, anything in between, it's there. But I talk about this guy named Rob Dickinson, Dave. And Rob was the lead singer of a group in the 90s, a rock group called Catherine Wheel. And when he came to America from Britain, he bought a Porsche and he customized it. And he said people would come up and say, hey, man, it's a great car. Would you be interested in selling that? And he said, I got tired of saying no. So I finally just said, you know what, I'll build you one. Well, now he owns a company in Sun Valley, not far from me here in Southern California, called Singer Vehicle Designs, where he reimagines the old 70s and 80s air-cooled Porsches and sells them for at least $400,000, some of them up to $1.8 million. That's all in, right? That's all in. In our business, I think of a guy right now, and I didn't tell him I was going to talk about him, so I'm not going to mention his name, but this is a guy that was a regional who had done really well in this business. And about 9 months ago, he said to me, you know what, I'm really thinking about moving into production. And so he did, in a town that he hadn't done production. And he's reinventing himself. He's building a secure future as a producer because he recognized, you know what, the industry is changing. This is going to be something that I can do. Dude, that's all in, right? To walk away from a corporate gig where you're being paid on the efforts of others and saying, I'm going to do it on my own.
Well, I think a lot of loan officers are at that crossroad right now, and a lot of regionals, let's face it, in the mortgage space. Your regional buddy is not alone, and it's like you either need to be close to the street producing, or you need to be managing an incredibly profitable, larger platform. And here's what I know, if you're a loan officer, if you're a manager, if you're in this mortgage business, if you're in the real estate space, you need to be all in. And, I always talk about, I'm super clear that, technology is not going to wipe out loan officers, even though we are in this technology-driven world. But loan officers who master technology will absolutely take market share from those that don't. But one of the things that since you started this podcast, and I've been listening as a fan, you're right. Like all high achievers decided I'm all in, and I even want to do one more distinguishing, and then let's riff on this for a minute, and then let's showcase one of your interviews.
Yeah.
But, a loan officer that's struggling, is it safe to assume that if you're struggling and there's things you should be doing, but you're not doing, you're not all in. You're dabbling. And if you're closing 8 or more loans a month, that's all in. You've made the decision that you're going to upgrade your skills. You're going to prospect even when you don't want to prospect. You're going to deliver a perfect loan experience with a total cost analysis, even when you think you don't need to. Like, they're not going to shop me. I don't need to give them my best experience, but the all-in LOs do. And so let's riff on that. What are some other characteristics between the all-in LO versus the dabbling?
So 2 things come to mind, and great point, as you always do as an interviewer. And by the way, your interviewing skills have really evolved over the past few years. So great job. Great job.
Thanks, Coach. That means a lot coming from you, man.
Yeah, well, I mean it, Dave. You do this, and you've created I've called you Switzerland forever, right? Because you've just figured out a way to not be completely aligned with any one entity, and you just provide value to the whole industry. And you've done an awful lot of interviews, and you do anything a lot, you're going to become really good at it. You become really good at it. 2 things come to mind. One is specificity on activities, and 2 is a niche. So specificity on activities, what I mean is, if you're a loan originator right now and you're struggling, you could do anything. You could do anything. You could approach realtors, you could go after builders, financial planners, CPAs, divorce attorneys, database. You could stand out in front of Home Depot and hand out business cards like a realtor I interviewed 10 years ago did. There's all kinds of things that you could do. But what I see with those that do the best is they have a few things that they focus in on, right? There's just a few things that they focus in on. So my strong suggestion would be few but better. Do few things better. Don't try and do a dozen or 24 things today. Don't do that. It's going to dilute your efforts. You're not going to get the payback and you're not going to go deep. So number one, specificity in the things that matter to you. And it may not be what Todd Buxman does or Jeremy Forcier does or Josh Metal does. It might be what you need to do, right? So be very deliberate about that. And you've heard me talk about that before. I don't think it's a guru's plan for you. I don't think that's ever going to be the answer. I think it's going to be who you are, figuring out how to lay that out to the marketplace, right? You heard, Lori Richardson today, who I've coached for years. Lori has a very specific way of approaching her market. She's figured out who she is and she knows how to do that. Cindy Ertman does that beautifully. I think you've got to figure that out.
So real quick, I want to riff on that one point. And you're so right. I mean, you look, and the names go on, Josh,
right?
Doctors, Andrew Paul, who you interviewed in your podcast for All In, focusing on the military, Louise Thaxton. I mean, the names go on and on and on. And that even ties to building your personal brand. Like, what do you want to be the digital mayor in? Get clear on that and then go all in. Okay, so that's one. Absolutely. All in. And then what's the other?
Well, the second one is really a niche. And I mean, you just touched on it, right? With Andrew Paul and Louise Thaxton and Jimmy Versalino focusing in on the military, right? That's one thing. I want to help these veterans. But it could be first-time home buyers. It could be Steve Hogard in San Diego right now, in Cardiff by the Sea, is very focused on what he calls the forever homeowner. The forever homeowner, right? Because they're now in their 60s, and it's like, you know what? We're gonna kind of double down here. Like, we're all in this property, but you know what? We'd like to get a HELOC. We'd like to get a 203K. We want to build a pretty cool backyard with a fireplace and a TV, and he's serving them. So I think if you figure out a niche, someplace that you feel like you can really differentiate and double down, man, that's going to pay dividends. And one last quick example is an encouragement. This is a guy that I've only coached for a few months, so I take zero credit for his success, right? I had nothing to do with it. I just came alongside of him because I knew he'd be a master's coach candidate. And his name is Chad Treese. And Chad is in the Midwest. He's with Prime, one of their top 10, did 422 units last year and took 40 days off.
Wow.
He did 422 units and he took 40 days off. And I think what Chad would tell you is while he and I are working on all kinds of stuff, he would say, what I did is I figured out the thing that I did really well, as is the case with most people listening right now or watching, is I figured out what I do really well is the consultation. I do that really well. Then I have a team of people around me and they take everything from there on. And he finally got to a point where he said, personally now, the only loans that I'm involved in are friends and family. So he made a decision to create a team that sort of transcended his own talent, right? He put his thumbprint on it and it's the Chad Treese team. But dude, he bought a house in Breckenridge. I think he's okay with me telling you this. And 40 days last year, like that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because that guy went all in.
Yeah, he said yes to a few things at a level of excellence. He said no to a lot of things and he went all in. Well, Let's do this. I like to keep these under 20 minutes.
Yep.
And I wanna do a little behind the scenes and I'm gonna put you on the spot.
You bet.
Because I've interviewed Andrew Paul. In fact, I did an interview with Andrew and Jocko Willink. Link down below. Don't miss that interview.
Great interview.
It is. But most importantly, I want to make sure people tune in to your podcast, guys. All in.
There it is.
Love the logo. Love the brand. It's one of those things where you just knowing that this exists and putting that in your mind, it's helpful. Like, since I've listened to this interview with Andrew 2 times. It looks like it's 29 minutes, guys.
Yep.
We've only got 5 minutes, but share a takeaway from this. You know, don't steal any of the magic from it because I want to get our community to listen to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, what are some of the takeaways you have from that, or something that you didn't have time to cover in the interview that you think might be helpful as we wrap up today's call?
Yeah. Well, so Andrew's arguably the most interesting loan originator or mortgage professional I know for this reason. He's also a Navy SEAL, right? So he's not, I checked on this to make sure that I was positioning it correctly. He's not a retired Navy SEAL. He's actually active duty reserve. So he's a lieutenant commander, active duty reserve in the United States Navy as a Navy SEAL. Oh, and he's a branch manager for Benchmark Mortgage in San Diego.
Don't mess with Andrew. Don't mess with Andrew.
Badassery in the mortgage space, Andrew wins, right? Like
Right.
He wins, yeah. So he could, as I joke, he could kill us with a spork, you know, there's no doubt, right? But he's also amazing at what he does. And the one major takeaway that I got from him is, it was for the book, because I interviewed him for my book, right? White Collar Warrior. And he's the one that helped me to see, because Andrew's like 5'8". And he said, look, Navy SEALs come in all sizes, small, extra large, everything in between. But he said, here's the thing we all have in common. You can't make us quit. You can't make us quit. He said, you don't get through Hell Week by dabbling, right? You're not going to be miserable and freezing cold and hungry and delirious from sleep deprivation and say, yeah, you know, we'll see how it works out. No, that's not how it works. You look at Jocko, you look at Leif Babin, you look at Andrew, and you're going to see that time and time again, it's a mental thing. So that's what I would point out, Dave. The interview itself, I'll just tell you that he tells the story of this KIA bracelet that I wear every day. It's the story of Michael Monsoor. And you're going to want to hear that story, because there is no more definitive story of being all in than his teammate, Michael Monsoor.
There's no doubt. It's a special interview, guys. I probably will listen to it annually because I just got a lot of value. You know, the other thing is, you know, Navy SEALs play at a really high level. You know, it's high competition. They practice a lot. They're incredibly great team members. There's just so much you can learn from listening to that interview. So guys, listen to Andrew Paul on All In. Tune in to Bill Hart, you know, listen to a few. I'm a fan. I'm hooked. You know, I'm going to interview Bill more on this topic. So if you have questions for Bill and I under the category of All In, put them below. If you have a mortgage professional, so that's the other thing I love about what Bill's doing is yes, Andrew happens to be in the mortgage space, but Bill's interviewing people from all over the world that are all in. And so I think that's great inspiration for us in the mortgage space. Like, let's tune into something that helps us learn from people outside of our space. But if you have an all-in loan officer that you want Coach Bill Hart to interview, or you are all in, put a link below, or not link, let us know.
Yeah.
Coach, any last words of wisdom before we wrap this one up?
Last thing I'll say to you is, to your point, I'm looking everywhere, Dave. This is not just mortgage or real estate by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I interviewed a woman in direct marketing with Rodan & Fields. This Thursday, I'm interviewing a guy named Todd Houston, who is an amputee, has one leg, and he has summited every tallest mountain or spot in the United States in record time, like faster than anybody with two legs. And I want to know about that. Like, that's all in. So every single week there will be a new example of this, because for me, if this existed and it wasn't me doing it, I'd listen to it just to get fired up, like get going for the week.
Yeah, why not? Let's get one with David Goggins. I just listened to that book. You know, he'd be a
Connect me,
right? So
if somebody knows David Goggins and can connect me, I would love to interview him.
All right, guys, you heard it from the community. So if you got a takeaway, if you got some inspiration, give us a like down below. Share this with your mortgage friends. Coach Bill Hart, appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dave. Appreciate it so much.
Take care, everybody.